we're going to dive into the world of NFTs again. This one, a very interesting one that's very close to my heart. We'll talk about the takeaways that the wider Bitcoin community have taken from this. So Ross Ulbricht has decided to launch some NFTs. He is raising money for different charitable needs. There are also personal needs of his. There's ongoing fights that he's going through, his family is persisting with in order to get clemency, because it was an absolute tragedy what happened to him, miscarriage of justice. Anyone who was at the hearing can attest to that. It was all completely politically motivated. We could dive into that in a second, but let's dive into the NFTs. So there's a series of work from Ross. He has taken to the art world since being wrongfully imprisoned. I'm going to have to stop charging this conversation. I'm just going to keep adding in those jabs. But this it makes me angry what happened. But to give you an idea of how the crypto community reacted to all of this, you've got a bunch of maximalists who hate NFTs in general, who are like, this is a perversion of Bitcoin, and because Bitcoin isn't an NFT, we don't like anything that isn't Bitcoin. So they're kind of ganging up on this. But I think that Crypto Cobain's takeaway was the best. He says there are a bunch of Bitcoin maxis trying to cancel Ross Ulbricht for selling NFTs to raise money for charity for people incarcerated. One tweet says, way to lose your fan base. This man is in jail for life and did more for Bitcoin than all of the Laser Eye cult combined. Bidding Ross NFTs. I would like to give a hat tip to Cobain, Crypto Cobain, for speaking out about that. I completely agree, and I think it's atrocious and embarrassing that so many maxis are coming down hard on Ross Ulbricht. If you know anything about the history of Bitcoin, then you know that this is not a man that you should be throwing shade at all. This is actually a tragedy that occurred to him. So I'm going to throw it to the group for your thoughts. I'm probably going to bid on this. I don't know about you guys, but it's a great cause and a great person leading it. But any other takeaways? Will, I'll throw to you to start off with.
Yeah, Crypto Cobain was definitely the voice of wisdom here, which you would not expect with a handle like that. But we did see like a lot of Bitcoin maximalists out there just kind of charged up over NFTs. They basically, it's like this cultural phenomenon we see in crypto, and it mostly lives on the Twitterverse, where people like their favorite coin, and anything that doesn't have their favorite coin is therefore vile and evil and shouldn't be associated with. And it doesn't even matter if someone's a hero in the crypto space, or if someone has done something that kind of puts them in legendary status like Ross. If you move across the party lines, you just get pillared, just like we saw here with this tweet storm, which is pretty sad. It's sad that that's the way it is. It's also kind of not shocking. I think we've seen a few instances of this over the last few years. And I think I had a tweet about this, and mostly I think it's about a lot of people who are moving to the space, and they haven't been around for a while. They're pretty new here, and they kind of associate with the group, becomes extremely tribal, and then all their takes just kind of fall within those tribal lines. And it takes a while for them to kind of see that there's a history here. This is only like a 13-year-old project, Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies out there. But they do have a history, and it's important to know that history before giving any hot takes out there. Jen, I'll throw it up to you.
These people are so annoying. So Ross was sentenced to a double life sentence in prison, and I think that it's great that he has come out with this project to help. Is it to help people who have been wrongfully imprisoned, Naomi?
That's right. So he has this big campaign where he mainly is focusing on like victimless crimes, it's drug use. He's really battling that area because he's met so many people whose lives were destroyed because they were found with marijuana on their possession. Like, it's crazy that even as the war on drugs, we're realizing that it's a complete failure. The federal government still has these mandates in place. So you can have all the states, figuring out their own policies. And yet with the federal laws still in place, the states are still taking a risk because you could have the DOJ just come in and arrest people anyway because they will supersede that. And so it's really sad to see all of these people whose lives were destroyed for these awful rules. And even as they're changing, these people aren't getting released from prison. They're still there for these archaic laws that no one agrees with anymore. And so it's just tragic. Ross has taken it up as a cause for these people who he doesn't believe should be behind bars. So I think it's fantastic. But I'll throw it back to you, Jen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know that Ross's family have been fighting ever since he was in prison to get him released. And I would love for you to take us through that timeline. I know we only have one more minute left in this segment, but just quickly take us through that timeline. And if there are any updates, I mean, we're in 2021 now. He's still behind bars. And it's just such a really sad story. I spoke to his mom, I believe, at a conference years ago, and just hearing from her, I was like, this is the worst story, and justice should be done for him, and I hope that we see it soon. But talk us through that.
Absolutely. And word on the street was that he almost got a pardon from Trump. So did Assange. But then Trump backed out at the last minute. It was just absolutely devastating for everyone involved in trying to make that happen. But so where it ended up is they failed in the appeals process. They are still trying to get presidential pardons. That is their main focus ground at the moment. But the whole thing, I mean, the two lead investigators who were responsible for putting him behind bars then went to jail themselves for fraud involved with the same case. And yet we're taking all of this digital evidence that wasn't allowed to be cross-examined by the defense, mind you. We're taking it all at face value and from these corrupt officers who were charged with fraud later on. So it's like, is this crazy scenario? It was completely politically driven. The New York DOJ, just like she wanted to, Catherine Forrest, I think her name was. It was like this big political statement. Bitcoin was coming out of the woodwork. There's also this war on drugs mentality still going on. And so they wanted to make an example of this person who's never hurt anyone in his life. There's all kind of FUD around the case as well. Lots of people will throw smears out there. But if you actually look at what Ross was charged with while he's behind bars, completely victimless person. He created a website. That's the essence of it. So really, really sad that we have him behind bars and not as a member of the community where he could be making things safer for everyone. And there's a lot of research to back that up.